quicksand don't work the way Hollywood showed you. And Native Americans knew a counterintuitive survival trick that sounds totally backwards. What they did with their bodies went against every instinct you'd have in that moment. And it's the reason they walked out alive. When you're sinking into quicksand, your first instinct screams, "Get out now." But here's what Native Americans figured out centuries ago: panic is quicksand's best friend. The faster your heart pounds, the deeper you sink. Think about it like this: when you're terrified, your body tenses up like a rock. Rocks sink fast. But what if you could turn yourself into something that floats? Well, that's exactly what these survival experts mastered. Native American kids learned breathing techniques that'd make yoga instructors jealous. Deep, slow breaths through the nose, 4 counts in, hold for 4, then 4 counts out. This wasn't just feel-good meditation stuff. This was life or death science. Controlled breathing slowed their heart rate from hummingbird speed to turtle pace. Here's the weird part: the calmer you get, the more buoyant your body gets in quicksand. It's like quicksand's got a built-in lie detector. Freak out, down you go. Stay cool as a cucumber, you pretty much float on top. Tribal elders didn't just teach techniques. They told stories that stuck. Stories about the warrior who panicked and disappeared into the earth forever. Stories about the wise hunter who breathed slow, stayed calm, and walked away to tell the tale. These weren't bedtime stories, they were survival manuals disguised as entertainment. But why does panic make everything worse? When fear kicks in, your muscles burn through oxygen like a sports car burns through gas. You start making sloppy decisions. Your vision narrows. You miss obvious escape routes. Plus, all that thrashing around, it's like mix-in cake batter. You're just making the quicksand looser and more dangerous. Native Americans understood something modern folks often forget: patience ain't just a virtue, it's a survival skill. While panic says, "Do something now," wisdom whispers, "Do the right thing slow." The difference between those two usually meant going home to your family or becoming a cautionary tale. Makes sense, right? Fear turns smart people into their own worst enemy. It's like your brain switches from GPS mode to pinball machine mode, lots of noise and movement, but no real direction. The most experienced survivors knew that surviving quicksand started before they ever touched the stuff. Mental prep beat physical strength every single time. They trained their minds like athletes train their muscles. And speaking of training, control in your breathing and heart rate was just the foundation. Once you'd mastered staying calm, you had to know exactly how to position your body to maximize your chances of escape. Ever tried walking on a waterbed? Your feet sink right through, don't they? Well, Native Americans figured out something brilliant about quicksand that most folks still don't know today. When you're standing upright in quicksand, all your weight pushes down through 2 tiny foot-sized spots. That's like trying to balance a bowling ball on a couple of golf tees. No wonder people sink fast. But here's where ancient wisdom gets real interesting. The moment someone hit quicksand, experienced tribal members would immediately lie flat on their backs. Sounds crazy, right? Your first instinct screams, "Stand up and run." But they knew better. Lying down spreads your body weight across maybe 15 times more surface area. It's the difference between poking the mud with a pencil versus pressing it with your whole hand. Then there's the floating trick that'll blow your mind. Human bodies are naturally less dense than quicksand. We're basically walking water balloons compared to that thick, heavy muck. When you're horizontal on your back, you actually float higher than when you're vertical. Your grandpa probably never told you that one during his fishing stories. The wide arm technique came next. Picture yourself making snow angels, but slower and with way more at stake. Arms stretched wide, legs spread apart. It's like turning yourself into a human starfish. This position gives you max stability and prevents that terrifying feeling of tilting sideways into deeper trouble. But here's the part that separated survivors from statistics: moving to safety required the patience of a chess master and the grace of a ballet dancer. No sudden movements, no panic-induced scrambling, just slow, deliberate shifts toward firmer ground. Smart tribal members treated their bodies like delicate instruments during escape. They gently worked one arm toward solid earth, then gradually shifted their weight that way. The whole process might take 20 or 30 minutes, but rushing meant disaster. The beauty of this horizontal method? It actually works against Quicksand's sneaky physics. When you're upright and struggling, the sand particles pack tighter around your legs with each move. But when you're flat and patient, you're working with the natural buoyancy instead of fighting it. Of course, knowing how to spread your weight right was just the beginning. The real masters understood that even perfect positioning meant nothing without the right kind of movement. And speaking of movement, the way they escaped once they were horizontal, that's where things get real interesting. You know what's fascinating? Native Americans figured out something that still trips up modern folks today. When you're stuck in quicksand, your first instinct screams, "Get out now." But that's exactly what'll sink you faster than a rock. These indigenous survivors had a completely different approach. Slow and steady wasn't just a nice saying, it was life or death wisdom. Here's the thing about quicksand physics that they understood without fancy science degrees: every sudden kick sends shock waves through that muddy mess. And guess what? Those waves come right back to grab you deeper. It's like the ground's playing tug of war and it's got home field advantage. Smart tribes taught their kids a simple rule: one limb at a time. Always. Never both legs thrashing together like some panicked fish. Never both arms flailing around like you're conducting an invisible orchestra. One careful move. Pause. Breathe. Then the next. The wiggle technique sounds almost silly until you try it. Instead of yanking your foot straight up, which creates suction that'd make a shop vac jealous, they gently rotated their ankle back and forth. Tiny movements that slowly broke the seal between skin and mud. Think about opening a stubborn pickle jar. You don't just muscle it off, right? You twist a little, release pressure, twist again. Same principle, except this jar's trying to swallow your leg. But here's where it gets real clever: they discovered that struggling hard actually changed the quicksand's consistency, making it thicker and grabbier. Light movements kept the sand more liquid, easier to work with. I've watched folks today make the exact opposite mistake: panic hits and they start doing jumping jacks in place. Might as well send the quicksand an engraved invitation to their funeral. Then there's the energy problem. Wild thrashing burns through your strength faster than a teenager burns through phone battery. After 5 minutes of crazy struggling, you're exhausted, and stuck right where you started. Maybe deeper. Native Americans saved their energy like it was precious currency, 'cause in quicksand, it absolutely was. The patience part probably drove some people nuts. Every instinct screams for speed when you're trapped. But these survivors knew that 15 minutes of careful, methodical movement beat hours of frantic fighting any day of the week. Makes sense when you think about it, right? The ground ain't going anywhere, and neither are you. At least not quick. Speaking of going places, movement was only half the battle. The really smart tribes carried certain tools that turned quicksand from a death trap into just another inconvenience. Native Americans weren't just smart about staying calm and moving right, they were absolute masters at using whatever Mother Nature left lying around. And trust me, when you're stuck in quicksand, you suddenly get real creative with a stick. The secret weapon? Strong roots and sturdy branches. These weren't just random grab-in points, they were lifelines. Experienced travelers knew which trees had deep, reliable root systems near dangerous areas. Willows and cottonwoods were favorites 'cause their roots spread wide and held firm. Smart, right? But here's where it gets interesting. Many tribes carried simple poles when crossing risky terrain. Not fancy equipment, just straight, solid sticks about as long as their body. Why? Well, if someone started sinking, they'd lay that pole horizontally across the quicksand surface. Instant support beam. The pole distributed weight over a much larger area, giving something stable to grab while working free. Then there's the footwear genius. Moccasins weren't just comfy, they were survival gear. Light leather meant less weight pulling you down into the muck. Plus, if a shoe did get trapped, losing a moccasin wasn't like losing a heavy boot. You could slip your foot out and keep moving. Modern hiking boots. Good luck getting those back. Native Americans also understood that sometimes you had to sacrifice to survive. Carry in a heavy pack or tools while sinking. Drop Your life's worth more than your stuff. This wasn't wasteful, it was practical. A lighter body escaped faster, and you could always make new tools later. The really clever part was improvisation. Found a fallen branch. Perfect rescue pole for the next person. Discovered some sturdy bark. It could become a makeshift platform or even rope when twisted right. They saw potential rescue tools everywhere, 'cause their survival depended on it. And the weird part is how they tested these natural aids before trusting them completely. A quick tug on that root. A bounce test on that branch. Nothing worse than grabbing what you think solid support only to have it snap when you need it most. Talk about insult to injury. These weren't desperate moves either, they were calculated strategies passed down through generations. Each tribe knew which local plants and trees offered the best emergency help in their specific terrain. But even the smartest use of natural tools meant nothing without other folks around to help. 'Cause sometimes, no matter how clever you were with sticks and roots, you needed human hands to pull you to safety. Nobody survives quicksand alone. Well, technically they can, but why make it harder than it's gotta be? Native Americans figured this out centuries before we started making action movies about solo heroes. They traveled in groups through risky terrain, 'cause math's simple, two heads beat one. Especially when one head might be stuck up to its neck in mud. Their rope game was impressive, plant fibers twisted into strong lifelines that could handle a person's full weight. Hemp, willow bark, even tough grasses became rescue gear. The trick wasn't just having rope, though, it was knowing how to use it without turning the rescuer into victim number 2. Picture the human chain method. The stuck person grabs the rope. The rescuer stays on solid ground, maybe 10 feet back. Sometimes a third person anchors the rescuer. Smart, right? Nobody wants to explain to the chief how one quicksand victim became 3. But here's where it gets interesting, they didn't just yank folks out like starting a stubborn lawn mower. That's a rookie move. The rescue happened in stages, gentle pulling, while the victim did that slow wiggling motion we talked about earlier. Patience saved energy for everyone involved. Teams also meant better problem solving. One person might spot the sturdy branch. Another finds the right angle for the pole. The third keeps watch for more dangerous spots nearby. Division of labor works whether you're building a house or escaping nature's glue trap. The psychological benefit was huge, too. Being stuck alone meant fighting panic by yourself. Having teammates nearby, that calm voice saying, "Take your time, we got ya," made all the difference. Fear makes quicksand worse, but hope makes everything better. They practiced these rescues during safe times. Kids learned the techniques before they ever needed them. Makes sense, right? You don't want the first time using a rope rescue to be the actual emergency. That's like learning to drive during a police chase. Group travel also meant shared knowledge, the elder who remembered where the bad spots were, the tracker who could read warning signs in animal behavior, the strong swimmer who wasn't afraid of waterlogged areas. Everyone brought something useful to the survival equation. Now here's where things get real interesting. Quicksand might sound like some wild natural trap, but it's actually a physics puzzle. The stuff's just a mix of sand, clay, and water, not deep pits waitin' to swallow folks whole like the movies show. It's more like thick soup. Once you stop struggling, something magical happens, your body starts to float. Native Americans noticed this way before modern science explained it. Their ancestors figured out through experience what researchers later proved with fancy lab gear: you can't really sink past your chest in real quicksand unless you're carrying something heavy. Think of it like floatin' in salt water, but grosser. The denser the mix, the easier it is to float, not drown. The trick was always patience. The more you fight, the more you lose. And while Hollywood made quicksand a dramatic villain, Native Americans treated it like a teacher. They didn't fear it, they studied it. They learned where it formed, how it moved after rain, and how animals reacted near it. Knowledge replaced fear. In the desert Southwest, tribes like the Navajo taught kids to test the ground with a stick before stepping. If the stick sank without much resistance, that meant danger. In the marshy East, tribes near the Great Lakes learned to spot tiny ripples or spots where the surface shimmered, signs the sand was waterlogged underneath. Each region had its own rhythm and wisdom, passed down through generations not with textbooks but with stories, songs, and lived experience. That's the beauty of ancient survival skills: they weren't written down, they were embodied. People didn't learn how to survive quicksand, they became the kind of people who knew instinctively what to do. But here's another twist: some tribes even used quicksand as a defensive tool. Warriors knew the land better than any outsider ever could. When invaders or settlers came marching through unfamiliar territory, one wrong step into a bog or quicksand field could slow their advance or scatter their line. Nature was the ally, not the enemy. And think about the message behind that: it wasn't brute force that won those moments. It was intelligence, observation, and respect for the environment. The earth wasn't just ground to walk on, it was part of the strategy. In modern times, we've kinda lost that relationship with the land. We pave it, build over it, and assume we control it. But nature's always got the final say. A few minutes in quicksand reminds you that control's just an illusion. Ever notice how quiet nature gets when something bad's about to happen? Birds stop chirping, air feels thicker, it's like the land's whispering, pay attention. Native Americans listened to those whispers. They used the same patience in quicksand as they did in hunting or tracking. Wait for the right moment, read the signs, then move. That slow, deliberate wisdom kept them alive for centuries, not gadgets, not luck, but calm understanding. And that's what makes their approach to danger so timeless. Whether it was quicksand, wild animals, or storms, the first step was always the same: don't panic. Because once your mind goes, the body follows. Science now backs this up too. Researchers found that people who stay calm under pressure literally have better motor control and clearer vision. Their brains keep oxygen flowing, while panicked folks start making jerky, random moves that dig them deeper, both in quicksand and in life. In a weird way, that makes quicksand the perfect metaphor for modern stress. The more you fight, the worse it gets. The moment you breathe, slow down, and trust the process, things start settling again. That same logic applies everywhere: relationships, work, danger, even fear itself. The wisdom of those tribes didn't just save them in mud, it saved them in every fight, every struggle, every storm life threw their way. So what's the takeaway from all this ancient wisdom? Simple: survival ain't about muscles, it's about mindset. Native Americans proved that staying alive in nature came down to trusting calm over chaos. They didn't see quicksand as something to fear, they saw it as something to understand. And that's the difference between people who survive and people who don't. The ones who survive aren't superhuman, they're just the ones who stop, breathe, and think before they move. Even today, that lesson hits hard. Whether it's quicksand or modern life pulling you down, the rule's the same. Don't fight the panic, float through it. Next time you're feeling stuck, in traffic, in stress, or in some messy situation that feels impossible, remember this, your calm ain't weakness, it's your way out. Ancient wisdom doesn't fade, it just waits for us to listen again.